Hey traders, welcome to Charts and Coffee. Great to see everyone. Happy Wednesday. All right, as always, show us about your questions. We're going to dive right into the questions. Yes, we have the Google earnings that the market will be responding to today. Yes, we have the NASDAQ and the XLC to keep an eye on as we see what the follow through from those Google earnings, and I think more minorly that AMD earnings are going to how they're going to play out. And then here's where I think Google is really going to be eclipsed by a much more important hot zone coming up, and that is going to be Friday's non-farm payroll. Remember, we are still in an environment where the uncertainty, March rate hike, May rate hike, increasing probability of a June rate hike. And then things get very, very fuzzy after that. 3 rate hikes are clearly projected in the Fed Fund futures, that target rate probability. But after that, it's not as certain as, say, the pundits on television might make it seem. So what happens is we're going to be basically like stepping stones, right? Exactly like stepping stones, going from one inflation growth and jobs hot zone data release after the other to map forward where the Fed can go. If you watched the action at 10 a.m. yesterday, here's some proof. If you watched the action at 10 a.m. yesterday and you saw the way the JOLT and the ISM were responded to, this market's still very keyed into economic events. So with that being said, let's jump into our questions. All right, first up, Ian, what time settings do I use for the JT multi to specify trend bias? Is it different than what I use for the MA propulsion dot? So when we talk about time settings and the JT multi, so great question. Let me grab my drawing tools here. The JT multi is just basically the premium version of what I give members to any of the rooms, the JT trend flag. So these things, I just call them trade flags. This is our trend flag. This is our momentum, right, flag. And right down here, the 2 rows are the JT multi. All right, so the time frame that I want to use for my bias, Ian, depends on what kind of trading I'm doing. The daily is still, I believe, the most important time frame there is. Getting that 1 candle per day, getting the close once per day, understanding the sentiment at the end of the session, I think is more important than any other time frame. So for me, the psychology, everyone looks at, am I up today or down today? Not am I up at noon or am I down at 10:30 a.m., right? Or am I up for the week? Maybe the month would be a distant second. So the daily time frame. Now, if I'm day trading, my bias is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be geared more towards the 5-minute chart. So propulsion is the same thing. Now, remember, propulsion, while they're still based on those same moving averages, those Fibonacci-based exponential moving averages, they're more a moving average replacement. Okay, they're more a moving average replacement. So thanks for the question. 1K, how are you? What do I think about Upstart, UPST? That thing, last time I looked, was in a heck of a downtrend. Big old double red downtrend, and has been since really the middle towards the end of November. You want to get long. Well, so here's what I'll say. If you have a longer term time horizon, you can go out to the weekly and look at, this is where I think your play is going to be. Now you're looking at a long call for January. So this is where there's going to be a little bit of a mismatch in the underlying market trend, excuse me, and the time horizon that you're talking about. Again, I don't know if we're going to bounce from here, but here's what I'll tell you is the play. On the weekly, we have a minor low happening at that 200 exponential propulsion. Very powerful. That's a longer time horizon, though. Weekly time frame, 1 new candle per week. If I go to the daily, I'm still in a big old downtrend, my friend. So what I need to remember here is I'd like to see, at very least, the trend go neutral, and I'll form a 1, 2, 3 and break the resistance of the top line of the wave. Now, remember, we're still below the 200 exponential. That's a lot of resistance overhead waiting up there, but that'd be pretty decent follow through if we were able to get that, right? But I need that pattern. Otherwise, really all I'm doing is sort of taking advantage of 3 up days and what could very well be a short the rip, right? So in a downtrend, my process, right? And I want to be limited by my process. I don't mean that in any negative connotation. My discipline to my process is where the longevity of my career has come and where the probabilities get increased. Are there one-offs here and there? Sure. But I know that the one-offs aren't the probabilities that have kept me in the game for 3 decades across multiple asset classes. It's being a student of the trend first and foremost. And this one, my friend, is down. Having said that, if you have a slightly longer term time horizon, the weekly shows that minor low at the 200, and that could be support, but again, a longer time horizon. All right, next up, IBM. So IBM, I actually probably don't think about IBM that much. IBM, once upon a time, was a heavy weighted stock, the number 1 weighted stock in the Dow. And it's not as relevant to name anymore, is it? So that doesn't mean it's untradeable. It simply means that it's got a lower impact on the Dow, DIA, or if you want to look at the YM. And it's right now, in its own right, it's north of the 200 propulsion. That's bullish in terms of being above, as I like to call that, the equator. And we are flirting with bullish structure. We've been kind of going on and off with that bullish structure. So it's more buyable than not. Can you buy the dip? I would say that yes, if we move down into the wave, the dip is buyable. I would focus on the long side for sure. How you want to get long, of course, that's up to you and your process, your strategy. But I would say the directional bias is most definitely bullish. So thanks for the question, Philip. JMO asks, what type of effect, if any, in the past does a split like Google have on weighted ETFs? Will ETFs adjust, stay the same? If so, could we see major jumps in the future split and Google shares rise? So anytime we see a split, I'm just going to talk historically, when you know one's coming, we didn't know this one was necessarily, now we do. It's really funny. Stocks tend to rally with a split. Now, the funny thing is, and this happened with Tesla, this is not a one-off historical. Stocks tend to rally in a coming split. So this is going to be 20 for 1? I'm excited because for once, Google is going to be a more affordable name, more affordable options, and it becomes, I think, a much more scalable type symbol to get into. So I'm excited about that. In terms of what happens into a split, yes, very often we're going to open in Google. Where the heck's this thing going to open? I saw 27. All right, so take a look. Tag 3,000, right? Look at this thing. There's your earnings, initial, and then there's your after hours action. All right, so we're up in the nosebleed seats. And so remember, Google is part of the XLC, which is in a downtrend. It's part of the NASDAQ, which is in a downtrend. Yes, the NASDAQ is going to get a boost from Google, but let's keep in mind, yes, there is oftentimes very much a rally as traders and investors will buy a stock in front of splits, which is, I will tell you, usually a very bad idea. Usually after the split, you'll see almost a 10% pullback. You're better off, not you, all of us, if we're thinking about buying Google, let it split. we don't get bonus points for the pre-split purchase. Let it split, let it pull back the 10% as it usually does, and then we can buy it then. Tesla did the same thing. However, yeah, Google could certainly rally, and in that rally, take XLC and the Qs, the NASDAQ as well, with it. But please notice, this is where the NASDAQ sits right now. It's in a downtrend. It's not trading, way up. Think about the weighting Google has in the NAS, and think about the fact that XLC has been pretty weak. I'm not going to make much of this Google scenario, but again, how we're going to see the adjustment, I'll wait till July, but I'm expecting the same type of reaction we typically see, which is it's probably going to benefit from the pre-split rally, which is really just mind-boggling. It doesn't make any sense because, again, historically, you're going to be able to buy it about 10% cheaper, if not the same price, less, than buying it before. It's just one of those funny little retail trader things that happens. But this one was a really dramatic, 20 for 1. So very dramatic post earnings reaction. Remember, as far as the weighted ETFs, XLC, QQQ, I don't think it's going to have as much impact as people think. And I think non-farm payroll is going to be a bigger near-term hot zone to watch. So JMO, that's my take on it right now. All right. I reserve the right to change my mind between now and July, but I really think this is pretty much, it's going to play out like every other split we've seen. Rally in front of it, sell off about 10% after, and then we'll see where everything settles. PSW, on my V-score intraday, I set a high-low range, correct, from 7:30 to 7 to 9:30. That's correct. Yeah, pretty much. And if you've taken my classes, and if you own the V-score, that's how I teach it. So yes, PSW, that's it. Hasham, love my thoughts on CAT. We have a bottom. We have a reversal on CAT. Let's take a look. CAT's on my radar. CAT's definitely on my radar, Hasham. And the reason for that is CAT is part of a narrative that I think could benefit. Same thing with Deere. Maybe not as well as, say, Archer Daniel Midland or some of the other agribusiness stocks in MOO, the ETF MOO. Yeah, somebody called an ETF MOO. But I am looking at a minor low in CAT. I don't like that it's below the 200. So CAT still has to move higher to get back up through the equator, which is resistance at the moment, and get back on the bullish sentiment side of things. So that's what I'm waiting for. That's really what I'm waiting for. If that happens, this is going to be the completion of the minor low. Taking out, it's already happened. Look, it's already happened with the trade higher through 2016, but we really need to get above, I'd say 206, and see follow through after that because of that 200. So the minor lows completed, the momentum trigger buy. Now the next obstacle to the upside is going to be at that 206 handle. So that's what I'm looking at on CAT. So thanks for the question. FXE, Mike, I've been a big fan of shorting the euro and getting long the dollar, no doubt. And as long as we continue on this hawkish central bank path, as long as the ECB does not adopt an overly hawkish central bank path, we're going to continue to see the euro lose ground against the US dollar. Now, the dollar could be stagnant and the euro could weaken. That keeps the FXE downtrend or 6E downtrend in play. The dollar could weaken and the the euro could stay flat. That still keeps a trend in place. This is actually no longer a trend, though. So our zone, thank you, Darvis. And by the way, those of you in the options room, the futures room, and my Sector Secrets Mastery, I have put the tops layout with the explainer. There's a set of notes and everything in the room drive, So go grab that. Fantastic framework. That is a framework for automated support and resistance, understanding market structure with the labels, the propulsion dots. So you have the smart EMAs running on your chart. My stochastic setting right here, 21.8, 21.3, with the little makes it really easy for dealing with chop, and then the wave and grab candles. And then let's say to all that, wave, grab, propulsion, Darvis, the trade flags. Oh yeah, I put this one in there too. You want to add squeeze, or instead of stochastic, you want to use ready, aim, fire. This is your main engine block. My horsepower junkies out there, this is your main engine block. And if now is the time to bore and stroke the motor, you want to put a supercharger on it, it's time to do whatever you want to do. You can. You can hot rod from there. It's a really good way to start. So with that being said on FXE, yeah, I want to actually get Mike up into this resistance here. Remember, we've got the ECB this week. So if the ECB triggers some volatility, keep an eye on that 114 to 115 handle on the 6E. And then we want to get long puts, probably the 106, likely 106, 107 puts on the FXE. Keep an eye on the liquidity though, because some of these currency ETFs can be a little illiquid. So keep an eye on that. Tracy asked, do we want to short that NQ, that QQQ rip? Tracy, I do actually want to keep focusing on, look, I know a lot of traders feel that Google could take the NAS higher. And you know what? I am always open to, best lesson I ever had as a trader, I never knew was going to come freshman year at university during debate class. And this was the topic, believe it or not, my partner and I, and then the other two, the other pair that we were debating against, we had to argue of all topics, why prostitution should be legal and why it should be illegal. We had the why it should be legal argument. All right, so we go in with all our reasoning, and at the very last moment, our instructor said, our professor said, "You're switching sides." And we looked at the other pair and said, "Oh my gosh, we'd only prepared for our argument." And after that, I never came in unprepared for what the other side of the argument would be. So as traders, we always want to have a really good grasp on why someone thinks the NASDAQ's ripping higher from here. And I try to seek out writing opinion that is opposite of what I'm looking at, so I don't get in my very own echo chamber in my head thinking, oh, this has got to go down. It doesn't got to do anything, right? However, as long as the structure is red, all I can do is short. I can choose to do nothing too. But what I can also choose to do is, if this is going to be, look at the candle shape right now. I love that candle shape. That is, for me, ringing the dinner bell to a short. If we can take, let's let the rest of the day, pan out. But I'll take a look to see if we have a minor high, this minor high pattern inside the wave. And if we do, and I'll keep an eye on Google, and I'll keep an eye on XLK and XLY, because remember, Google is not the only weighted stock in the NASDAQ. And Google is a bigger part of the XLC. That's Facebook and the two alphabets. So I'll keep an eye on it, but I still need the pattern. So am I still interested in a short in this zone in the NAS? Yes, I absolutely am. Unless my trend goes neutral, which I'm not going to presume it will, but unless that thing goes neutral, I'm going to continue to focus on double red shorts. Absolutely. Now, some folks might like, somebody asked me earlier about UPST, or, what are some of the names that are double red in this environment? Here's Adobe. If you want an individual stock that won't necessarily be as sensitive to the Google, look for those double reds. Crack open the SMH, crack open the IGV, find those double reds. We might want to short IGV instead of QQQ. We might want to find ways to sort of navigate around whatever Google might do. There are shorts still out there. I don't think we're out of the woods. I'm going to keep an eye on ZN. I don't want everyone getting too sort of predisposed with the yields and get too predisposed about what's happening in terms of rates, because again, we only have the three really factored in. We really want to be checking the bond, ZN and ZB, 10 and 30, 10 and long bond, on Friday at these important jobs, inflation, and growth numbers. That's what's going to map to what the Fed's going to do next. All right, so I hope that was helpful. As always, thanks for being a part of Charts and Coffee. I'm going to jump on into the Sector Secrets Mastery. I'll see you all same time, same station tomorrow. As always, if I missed your question and you're looking for an answer, leave a question in the comment section below the video. Smash that like button on the way out. Let us know we're heading in the right direction with what we're doing here. As always, awesome to caffeinate and dominate with you all. Be good to each other. Remember, non-farm payroll on Friday. I'll talk with you soon.